Hello, my name is John Sveck. Welcome to this ALL24 video. Coach Gary Waterman and I are joined today by Ben Dandria. He is the Special Teams Coordinator and DB Coach at Queen's University. Thanks for being with us, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Awesome. So we're going to do a toolbox video here. Ben has a drill set up for us, so I'll give you the floor there, Coach.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to finally talk some football here. Yeah, so the one drill I kind of want to go over is what we call the three-man leverage drill. It's a great drill for basically any coverage team, specifically for punt. Specifically, the way we do our lanes on our current punt team, we run into this kind of leverage opportunity a lot. So essentially what the drill teaches is try to kind of use your teammates in space. And it's just kind of an opportunity for guys to rep something, as close to a game level as possible. So just to start it off, I mean, the way the drill runs, you usually need a couple of coaches for it. First coach, you're going to blow the whistle to start it, and all that's going to do is going to start your three guys down the field towards the returner. Coach number two is going to throw the ball up to a spot. The returner is going to go there, and what's going to happen is as the returner is moving to a spot to where the ball is going, those three coverage players are going to adjust and try to keep their leverage. What we usually tell the guys is try to stay 5 by 5 if you're a contained player or an outside player, and 5 and head up if you're the middle player there. So the middle player is what we call a north stop player. So his job is just to make sure that he's head up and not allowing that returner to step up the field. I used to use the term vertical momentum, if that helps or is more in your scheme. And then the two outside players are to cut off any horizontal momentum or any east-west movement with it. So it's really important that all three of these players are going to finish the drill with a tag. So as soon as the returner gets the ball in his hand, he can try to juke and try to maneuver whichever way he likes. And then those guys got to try to keep their leverage and then make sure they finish the drill with the tag and with what we call our correct leverage hand. So if you're player number one, for instance, on this diagram here, you want to tag with your right hand to make sure that you're square to the play the whole time. A little bit more on the technique of it. What we talk with the north stop is it's super important to stay square to the play. And again, just to make sure that you're nose to nose with that player. So we really work on having that guy work laterally instead of down the field to make a tackle right away. You're trying to stop any momentum up the field. Our two contained players, we make sure that they break down and gear down with their inside foot up. What that does, it allows their hips to stay open if that returner does try to bounce it to the outside. A lot of mistakes that young players or players that are new to special teams or defense, that kind of stuff, will do is they'll tend to start to turn towards the returner and their outside foot is up. And what happens is usually the returners are pretty fast players. If that guy tries to bounce it to the outside, it's really tough to kind of open up your hip and try to maintain your leverage. So those are kind of the technique points that we talk about in this drill. Main reason why I love this drill so much is there's so many different combinations of things that you can work on with this drill, and there's so many different things that you can add to it. So I've kind of added in this slide. First progression is what we'll do is we'll put a punt return player right in front of the punt player. And what they'll do is they'll just start engaged or they'll give a stab, and you can basically do it to whatever tempo you'd like. But those punt players or coverage players have to avoid and use their hands to get off a block off the start, and they want to get off to their specific leverage. So the two guys on the outside are going to try to get off to the outside leverage, and the guy in the middle's got a two-way go, but he understands he has to stack and become that north stop player by the time he gets the returner. And then, you can play around with how far you want that coach to make the returner adjust the ball and how much you want your coverage players adjusting. And then the last one is what we turn into a compete drill, and we'll actually make those punt return players active and live. So they're going to basically try to jam and dog. It's great drill for combining with a lot of punt return drills and stuff that we do as well. And we'll do it in a confined space. So now it's basically a 3-on-3 matchup with the returner. Those three punt players are trying to get a tag on the returner, and those three, obviously, punt return players are trying to get their guy and seal them and give the returner a clean picture as to where they want to go on that return.
That's phenomenal. And we got some great video here to go with it. Do you have any questions, Coach Waterman, before we get to the film?
Well, yeah, I think it's a great description of the drill. And Coach, maybe you want to talk about, how many times you do these special teams drills and they might show up on offense or defense for your team.
Yeah, I mean, we do it basically. I've been with Queens now for 5 years, and We've done it basically every single training camp, spring camp, winter camp, and as many times as you can fit it in during the year. We'll definitely do it during the season as well. And it's actually a great defensive drill too. It just teaches leverages and how you're supposed to kind of help each other out. You're not by yourself out there. It may feel like it sometimes, and especially if you're in a lot of space in special teams. But it's extremely important to just use your leverage and use your teammates to your help. And I found our guys have, especially the guys that are new to specials or the defensive side of the ball, it has helped them tremendously in learning, how to fit in space. So this is kind of the second progression of the drill. You can see at the beginning, the guys are, working extremely hard to, keep that guy there. They're just trying to make sure that the hands, are worked and get off the block. And what you can see that all three players at the bottom of this drill are staying extremely square to the play. Our north stop player does an extremely good job at staying nose to nose. And if you watch when he pushes laterally, it's all lateral. He's not coming down the field anymore. He is not preventing that player from stepping up the field at all. So that's a very good job by our north stop player. Our two contained players are pretty good. I'd like to see them a little bit more broken down with their inside foot up, but they are quite square to the play and their outside hip is open. So totally an acceptable play on that sense. You can watch 24 on that side of the screen. When he gets attacked by that returner, he's able to open up that hip and step up and cut that player off from going outside. And then all three players finish with a tag on it. So pretty easy. You don't need pads. It's just a great way to work your leverages and work with your teammates to be able to corral that returner.
And coach, just to add, I've heard you say it several times, and I think for some of the younger coaches, when you're doing these things, so many great ways to work some of these skill sets without having to go 100% in terms of physicality at the end of the play and banging each other. You're doing a great job here. Can you talk a little bit about sort of that?
Yeah. So what we, with this drill right now, what we kind of finish with every time is what we call a whiz tempo. And it's just going to finish with the tag off. So we actually want to try to avoid that returner as much as possible with the contact portion of things. What we talk about with our middle player here, our north stop players, to try to get a tag with both hands on the hip, and with our two contained players, just get a single hand tag. And what we want is we actually want that return to continue up the field. So that third player that isn't necessarily in the drill here has to get onto a pursuit lane right away and finish that drill with the tag. We actually don't blow a whistle to end this drill. The drill is ended when all three players have gotten the tag or the returner is scored.
Well, that's phenomenal. We got another clip here coming up, so we'll let it get to the next rep here.
Yep.
Different angle.
So this next rep here is actually what I talked about with that compete. So we've actually got 6 players competing now. We've got punt and punt return players, as well as the returner working. So one thing I want to highlight with this drill here is it's, we talk about in the other drill, we want to stay nice nose and nose with that north stop player, but you see how our number 22, our north stop player, is actually squeezed over to the one side. We actually really like what he's done in space here because he's actually pushed his return man away, and he's given that return a little bit of space, but he's actually given him space to get off that block and make the tackle. Whereas if he went, 100% by direction and went face to face with that returner and that blocker fit in on him, it's actually going to be extremely difficult for him to maintain that north stop leverage. So you can see 22 gives himself a little bit of space there before he squares up. And now the returner sees a seam, but it's actually very easy for that coverage player to close off that seam. So that's a senior player that that's played a lot of specials and knows his spacing. If you look at the two other guys on the outside, what I do like, 35, he actually does a great job at staying square and keeping his outside hand free. He squeezed the play a little bit, which to me is fine as long as he has that leverage and is able to work back outside. On the other side, however, he's actually one of our best special teams players. But on this play, for example, and you've paused it on the perfect spot, he's turned his shoulders and he's engaged his punt return player. So to me, if a very fast returner has just recognized this, or really any returner in our league for that fact, put his foot in the ground and try to get to the outside, it's really difficult for that player to get off the block and to try to cut that returner off. So to me, that's the one piece there that you can see the other two punt players are quite square to the play, and he's the one that isn't square. He's just kind of looking to see if it's gone inside or not. He's not exactly trusting his other players on there. So great drill. And again, it's a great drill to work your punt return stuff too. And it's a great drill to work your returners trying to read their blocks and set up blocks and that kind of stuff too.
I just have one question. Do you have a
Yeah,
rule of
absolutely.
thumb when it comes to the depth of especially those contained guys? Like, are you when breaking down, is it all the way to ball depth? Or are you giving a yard or two, or do you have a rule of thumb of that
Yeah,
distancing?
so for this drill, we talk about 5x5. That will change basically by who you are on the punt team and what the scenario is. What we'll actually see in later clips, I'll show you. We have a couple shot. What we usually our three guys down the field the fast on the punt team are our long snapper and our two shot players, or two Hawks, Eagles, whatever you want to call them. And generally speaking, I kind of let them play around with it. Did the returner catch it in the air? One, is he working forward on his catch? Two, did the ball hit the ground? That kind of stuff. So that can kind of play into how aggressive you are. But we like to basically try to say 5x5 as a general standpoint, because you can see things in front of you and it still gives you the opportunity to step up once that returner's caught the ball. The other thing, obviously being Canadian rules, is we want to make sure that we give yards. And I have done the drill a few times where you say, okay, the outside guy, you've got to be at least 6 yards outside, but you can only 3 yards off the ball. Well, a lot of the time those guys start creeping into that halo a little bit. So 5x5 I think is a pretty good general standpoint.
That's great. We have some game footage here to get to.
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
if you like the wide or the tight more, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can just kind of roll it. We don't have to go back on this play, but what you can see if you pause, anytime now, you can kind of see those first three players there. We have our long snapper and then our two shot players. So our boundary player here, he's a little bit tighter to the returner, which we don't mind. There's not a whole lot of space for that return to bounce outside. And then our field shot player is being ultra aggressive here, and that's a great player on our team, has great awareness in space, and he noticed that the ball hit the ground and the returner didn't catch it clean, so he could be a little bit more aggressive on that play. So he kind of goes right into it and is ultra aggressive with his outside contained player. But you can see when the returner picks his eyes up, he doesn't really have anywhere to go. And this generally happens. You're usually going to get three guys free. For us, it's usually long snapper, two shot guys. But there will be times where, a guard gets through cleaner and, a team schematically has blocked your long snapper. But it's essentially just getting those 3-point guys and everybody else filling in from there.
And Coach, listen, as Coach freezes it right there, you want to run it back a little bit here, Coach? Right there is good.
Yep.
Right there. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's always the ultimate goal in coaching, where when the drills that you're putting together for your guys are showing up exactly on tape, right? That's the goal we're trying to do here, right?
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's not always going to be, a nice defined, clean picture. I just happened to find a couple during our season, but it's great to point them out. When we do our special teams review and we see things like this, it's really important to point those things out. Especially because, young guys that may not think the drill is really all that important. You can see that guys are being very successful on the play, are using the drill and using their awareness and those types of skills in space. So this next clip is a good example of it as well. What I really like about this clip is our north stop player, our long snapper. Actually, this was his first year long snapping for our team. But what you can notice, he doesn't move and get out of space a ton. That returner is trying to move him one way or the other, but he knows exactly where he should be. And his aiming point for us on this punt is the field side shoulder, and he's staying on that field side shoulder the whole way. He doesn't care if he goes to the boundary because he knows he's got help there. He doesn't know if if that guy tries to push it to the field, he's going to try to stay that field side shoulder. But essentially, the returner tries to do a move and then step up, and that north stop player is right there. So you could probably see it from this angle pretty well as well.
It's phenomenal, and I really enjoy the way you have the drill set up in the sense that, like you said, it could be any three players, really, right? They double somebody or whatever happens, or even on defense, every player could find themselves in any one of those positions. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoy the drill.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, these three clips I picked, it's just easy because it's, the guys who are most likely free for us. But it definitely happens where all of a sudden that shot man gets, beat up a little bit on the line of scrimmage, or the long snapper does, but, a guard or a tackle gets free. Or, one of those guys gets double teamed and now you have an up back filling the lane for them. But there's usually, 3 or 4 guys that are those main standouts that get down to the field the quickest and are on the return the fastest, and everybody else's job is just to kind of fill in off of them. it's super important on special teams, especially to, understand where your help is going to be in space.
That's phenomenal, Coach. A great breakdown and a phenomenal drill. So really appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Great stuff.